All of these winning ways continue for Duke basketball. They're now 7-0 on the season. The Brotherhood run was a major success. Massive offensive performance from our guys.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us today on this Monday, November 24th, 2025. Happy Feast Week. Happy Thanksgiving week to everybody out there, as Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. Today's show, we're going to have our pal Hugh Straine from Ball Durham on the program with us to talk about a pair of Duke basketball victories from over the weekend. And in the final segment of today's show, the victory bell is staying in the correct shade of blue as Duke knocks off North Carolina in Chapel Hill. We'll break it all down. Busy, full show coming for you guys here on the program today. So without further ado, if you have not done this before, make sure that you subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Go ahead and watch us each and every day on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your friends as we continue to grow our audience here within the world of Locked On Blue Devils. Here he is, Hugh Straine's hanging out with us today. And Hugh, it's great to see you once again. Happy Thanksgiving week to you and your family, my friend. I want to talk about the Brotherhood run and a pair of victories that Duke basketball got. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, too. Appreciate you having me on, like always.
Absolutely, bro. Let's get after it. Hugh's our Monday guest throughout the course of basketball season. As people have become well aware, everybody's looking forward to these Hugh Mondays, as we call them. So we got to look at a pair of victories for Duke. Typically, when you and I are coming on to recap a weekend, there's maybe a game that was played. Now we've got a pair of them so far, as Duke kind of had a almost NCAA tournament run schedule, right? Where you're playing the Friday, Sunday slot and earn a pair of big victories. We'll get into kind of game by game here in just a moment. But overall thoughts, what were your takeaways from Duke?
Yeah, I think it's just a cool, a well-timed opportunity for Duke right before the most daunting part of its non-conference slate. 4 of Duke's next 5 games will be against top 25 opponents. So you play 2 games in 3 days. Again, 2 games where you probably didn't learn too much about the team. Duke won the 2 games by a combined 95 points. But still, you tune up, kind of get your guys in, figure out what motion works, because you got 4 out of your next 5 games that are going to be really, really important, really crucial quad 1 opportunities that will pay dividends later in March. So I think really well-timed. Also great to get Greg Paulus and Kenny Blakeney, 2 Duke alums, back on the court. Greg Paulus had nothing but great things to say about Coach K. It's a cool opportunity altogether in a packed-out Cameron. So I think just a good opportunity for Duke to 2 things up before this really, really daunting part of its non-conference schedule.
Yeah, man, it was so cool to have Greg Paulus back. And I love the angle, right, that obviously there's the Coach K connection. And Coach K was there sitting baseline with his granddaughters throughout the course of the weekend and got to see all the festivities. Duke recognized the head coaches of the other teams for their playing days and that sort of thing. But starting with Friday, Duke takes on Niagara, where Greg Paulus is the head coach. And that special connection that for 3 seasons, he was a teammate of Jon Scheyer. That was really cool to see that whole dynamic play out. And even before the game, after the game, honestly, a really emotional Greg Paulus that we got to see. He hadn't really had a chance to come back after his playing career there at Cameron Indoor. And so, man, that was really special to see. And that Jon Scheyer angle in particular was unique and interesting.
Yeah, really cool moment before the game where Scheyer, Coach K, and Greg Paulus went out to center court, kind of embraced. Just a cool moment with the applause from the fans. Then after the game, Greg Paulus had nothing but fantastic things to say about Coach K. Really hardly talked about what Coach K taught him as a player at Duke, but just what he taught him about how he's a father now, he's a coach now, and what Coach K taught him off the floor. So really cool moment. It looked like Coach Paulus looked really, really grateful to be back at Cameron Indoor, and he's doing a great job with this Niagara program. He recently brought them to their first winning season in, I think, 9 years.
Yeah.
Max semifinals 2 of the last 3 seasons. He's really doing a great job over there with the Purple Eagles.
Dude, it was awesome for the Brotherhood run to take place. And then for Duke basketball, it was awesome For Niagara and Howard, that was not the case at all on the basketball floor. So let's get into it. Incredibly overwhelming. Like we talked about on Friday going into it, both of these teams were in the sub 300s. Again, there are 365 Division I teams in the sport, as many teams as days in a year is an easy way for folks to remember that this season. And both of them way down there, and Duke absolutely dominated them. Niagara, the final score, 100-42. The Duke basketball victory. Offensively speaking for the Blue Devils, you got to go to the outside three-point shooting in this one. Duke made 17 three-pointers, 17 of 33, over 50% shooting from three-point range. Duke couldn't miss.
Yeah, it was two fairly uncompetitive games. Again, 100-42 victory. 24 assists on 38 or 32 made field goals. And yeah, you mentioned it, JJ, over 50% shooting from 3 on 33 attempts. That's unbelievable efficiency. 58% shooting from the field. Duke also got it done defensively. They forced 17 turnovers that led to 23 points. Cam Boozer only went for 14 and 5 boards just because it was such an uncompetitive game. He didn't really need to do that much. Pat Ngongba led the way with 17 and 8. Duke continued to dominate on the free throw line. They were plus 10 in attempts, plus 9 in makes. That continues to be potentially their biggest advantage all season, but a fairly uncompetitive game. Duke was just absolutely swarming on the defensive side of the ball, and a game that was fairly lopsided, fairly uncompetitive. But again, more for a team like Niagara to really learn a lot about itself, and a team like Duke to tune up before it takes on some ranked squads.
Yeah, truthfully speaking, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. This was the most boring game from Cameron Boozer, and the least productive that we've seen so far in a Duke uniform. And it just did not matter because everybody else was picking up the slack and playing well. Duke finished with 6 players in double figures. And what I found most impressive, 4 different guys had at least 3 3-point makes in the game. Isaiah Evans, Caleb Foster, Caden Boozer all had 3 3-pointers. And then our guy, Nick Kamenia, finished with 12 points on 4 of 5 shooting from 3-point range. So 6 in double figures, Hugh, and then 4 guys with at least 3 3-point shots made.
Yeah, Caden Boozer spoke postgame with the media about kind of getting his 3-point shot going. He was a talented 3-point shooter in high school and just really hadn't seen the efficiency up until that game against Niagara. Was shooting 25% from 3 up until that point. So good for him. A capable shooter just kind of needs to see some shots fall, and then they tend to find their groove. So a capable shooter like Caden Boozer, just seeing some shots fall is exactly what he needed to see. And I'm assuming that that's going to kind of lead him into some sort of rhythm. And same for Nick Kamenia. That guy is just such a high basketball IQ. And both him and Dame Sarr, who were those 2 freshman wings coming into Duke, didn't know who was going to start. Both have a lot of development to go. I think both of those guys are developing so quickly on the offensive side of the ball specifically. They both came in as elite defenders who have great switchability, can guard the 1 through 4, both at about 6'8". But I think they're really developing their offensive games, and I think they're both becoming 2 crucial parts of this offense. I think they're going to continue to do that, but it just shows Duke has shooters everywhere. Yeah. And Jon Scheyer is adapting in this new college game. He's found his big man that he revolves his team around inside, and he just surrounds him with shooters. And it's going to make it so difficult for teams to game plan against Duke if it can consistently make these 3-point shots. 17 for 33 is an unbelievable clip. Obviously, you can't expect that to happen. But if Duke can come out and consistently shoot 38, 40, 42% from 3 on high volume, it's going to make them so hard to beat with how good they are defensively.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to knock them down, it's insane. But then also Duke's rebounding really well offensively right now. So able to get those misses from 3-point shots and the way they're playing around the rim with Ngongba and Boozer, you can clean up a lot of those mistakes. There will be games. In fact, there was one 24 or 48 hours later on Sunday where the shots weren't necessarily falling at that impressive of a rate, but they were on Saturday or a Friday. And when you get games like that from Duke, it's going to be really impressive. Season high, 17 made 3-pointers. I'll even go down the line where we saw Pat Ngongba make his first career 3-point shot, which was awesome to see. So in total, Ngongba, Sarr, Evans, Foster, Kamenia, Boozer, Jack Scott, and Darren Harris all made 3-point shots for Duke. And even beyond that, it's the first time all season that every single player on Duke's roster that played in the game scored. Of course, Sebastian Wilkins has been dressing out, but he's not playing as he's pursuing that redshirt year right now. So Everybody that got into the game scored, and I just listed off all the players who made three-pointers. Would have been easier for me just to tell you who didn't knock one down from the outside. Hugh.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pat Ngongba hitting his first three of his Duke career. And my biggest takeaway from the weekend was how much better Ngongba's getting so quickly on the offensive side of the ball. Over Duke's last 3 games, he's averaging 15.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block on some insane efficiencies, 15 of 16 from the field and 15 of 19 from the free throw line. A 6'11 big man who can be that reliable from the free throw line is such a luxury for a coach like Jon Scheyer to have, especially as you get into late situations in these games against high major opponents. But I think he's using his feet and his body as a whole so much better. He came into the season as Duke's anchor defensively. We all knew he could be a great rim protector. He could run the floor in transition, but his offensive arsenal was fairly small and he needed to expand that. I think he's doing a phenomenal job with his feet. He's creating his own shot. He's finding himself lanes, and he's becoming more than just a back-to-the-basket big. Out of pick-and-roll situations, especially in the short roll, he's been so good, and I'm really, really excited with how his development's gone this early on, and so many of these young players for the Blue Devils just getting so much better so quickly.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. All right, we got to take a break, and then when we come back, we've got another game to get to. How about last night? Duke, impressive afternoon game against Howard. Come out on the winning side of things, does the Duke Blue Devils men's basketball team. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. College football, of course, in full swing. We've got a week of it left in the regular season, and you couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries for sure this week, and the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless waiting queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. The easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I love the seat view that you're able to see within the app, so you know exactly what you want to look into and what the view is going to be when you get there to the game. You can get tickets for as low as $25. How about that? Pretty amazing. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Hugh Straine from Ball Durham's hanging out with us today. Now we got to get to yesterday's game. Duke plays Howard and wins that one by a final score of 93-56 as the Blue Devils, once again, a really impressive offensive performance in terms of attacking the rim, playing above the rim. I thought the dunks in this game were some of the most impressive that we've seen all season, particularly from Isaiah Evans. We see you Showtime Slim. Not just a three-point shooter playing above the rim, but all told, another great outing for Duke against Howard.
Yeah, I liked how Isaiah Evans attacked closeouts a lot better than he really has in his entire career, because with how frequently he shot the three as a freshman, 80% of his shot attempts were from three, and with how willing he obviously is a shooter this season because he's so talented, of course, opposing defense are going to attack a closeout and expect a shot every single time. But I thought he did a great job of attacking closeouts. And finding a lane to the basket, which is something I think that he's going to need to do at times, because there's going to be games where Duke is cold, and there's going to be games where Duke is in these offensive droughts and are going to need to get to the basket. And his instincts, for lack of a better word, sort of, he likes to take the outside shot because he has the potential to be one of the best shooters in the entire ACC. Yep. But if he can get to the free throw line, get Duke just a couple easy points like that. And like we mentioned earlier, shooters just need to see something go in at times. But I really like how he's being more aggressive going to the basket. We've seen it more over the last few games. And yeah, I mean, just another all-around uncompetitive game from Duke. Duke was up 52-18 at the half. Boozer had a bit of a bigger stat line with 26-12, but just defensive domination against a team that really couldn't handle it. A lot of contributors everywhere for the Blue Devils. And again, just another tune-up victory before this, big part of the non-con slate.
Dude, you teed it up for me because we got to go to Cam Boozer. We talked about how kind of boring and uninspiring a 14-5-2 game was for Cam against Niagara. All told, go through stat. I mean, it was a much more impressive game for Cameron Boozer. He was fun to watch.
Yeah, he was, just doing his thing. I still think the most important and I think the most impressive part of his game is his passing. He leads Duke in assists, and his vision when he's down low in the post to always look to the middle of the floor with his eyes up, I think is so impressive for a freshman who's played such little college basketball. The off-ball movement for Duke has been so good, and it's giving Boozer lanes to pass the ball, but he's been struggling at the rim as a scorer at times. We've seen it against Texas and against Kansas. Texas has good bigs, and then Florida been doing a Gabe Cam Boozer struggles. But I think it's so impressive how he doesn't force anything on the offensive side of the ball in terms of scoring. He makes the right play almost every single time. And even against Howard, when Duke's up 35 points before halftime, he's making the right read. He's being patient. He's not necessarily just barreling to the basket like I think we saw him do early on this season. But he's getting better so quickly. Him and Caden actually signed a deal with Jordan Brand earlier today. Became the first men's college basketball players, along with Syracuse's Keon Anthony, to sign with Jordan Brand.
Yep.
His NIL valuation goes up. He's leading Duke in all 5 major statistical categories now. Just again, I still think he's the most complete player in the entire country, and we're just seeing it more and more with each game.
So much fun, man. He's an absolute baller. And again, defensively, like you said, that first half when Duke's winning 52-18, there was just nothing Howard could do, or even defensively to open up the second half. If you recall, Bryce Harris, who finished being the leading scorer for Howard in this one, he finished with 15 points, although inefficient at 3 for 12 and 1 for 5 from 3. He ended with like 3 fouls on the opening possession on Pat Ngongba, gave up an and one. I mean, like you said about the Niagara game, even Ngongba is getting more comfortable playing around the rim.
Yeah, I want to say Bryce Harris I think he had 3 fouls in 7 seconds to begin the second half.
Yeah.
Wild like that.
That's insane.
It was something
You
wild.
never see that. Wow.
You really don't. It was, you liked his aggressiveness. You liked his hustle. He was a fun guy to watch. And I mean, when you're in an environment like that, of course, you're going to lay it all out there, because for guys like, we're playing for Howard, coming into Cameron Indoor is probably just such an awesome experience, and packed out arenas and something they're probably not used to. But yeah.
At some point on that possession, you might just want to take, at some point, something's got to click and say, okay, I just can't guard him here.
No, it was wild to see. Even
3 fouls in 7 seconds.
Yeah, it was something it might have even been less than 7 seconds. It was something along those lines, and it was all on one inbounds play, and Pat Ngongba kind of drove all those fouls. But even the broadcasters at one point were talking about how wild it was, just how quickly you pick up 3 fouls, assuming unintentionally. But yeah, what are you going to say? Against all that length, Bryce Harris is probably 6'2", 6'3", and with Duke's switchability, there was a lot of mismatches all over the floor all night. Ngongba really had his way whenever he wanted it, but again, just dominant inside. Duke's length against these smaller opponents just really, really shows more than it would against a high major opponent, and especially against a team like Arkansas. I think that's going to pay dividends against a really talented offensive squad that Duke's got up next.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the offense that we'll see is certainly going to improve in the upcoming stretch, but it's good to put these games together if you're Duke basketball. We mentioned the 26 and 12 for Cam Boozer. Ngongba finished with 16. The other guy in double figures was Isaiah Evans, like we talked about. Caden Boozer finished with a team-high 6 assists, and everybody, once again, kind of wanting to talk about the Foster and Boozer dynamic, and certainly it felt like we got a little bit more out of Caden Boozer in yesterday's game against Howard. You mentioned getting more comfortable with the 3-point shot. It's really cool to see Caden Boozer game by game getting more comfortable.
Yeah, as a passer, really, he was a great defender from when he started, but as a passer and as a scorer, specifically an outside shooter, he's definitely getting more comfortable. But I think what so many people in the preseason were talking about, myself included, was who is the starting point guard, mainly because Boozer is a highly touted freshman. Caleb Foster's coming off an utterly disappointing sophomore campaign. What's the leash? But what I'm starting to see with every game that goes on is that they can play on the floor together regularly. And I think it actually benefits Caleb Foster a lot, because both can initiate the offense, both can run the floor, both are talented passers. I actually think Caleb Foster has been Duke's best perimeter defender. I saw it against Melvin Council when Duke was playing Kansas. Melvin Council was tearing up Duke's wings on the perimeter. I think he went on an 8-0 run by himself, and then Caleb Foster came in and just stopped it. But they can play on the floor regularly together because it allows Caleb Foster to be more of a scorer when Caden Boozer's also on the floor with him, because they can both initiate the offense and pass really well. So I think if Caleb Foster can work more off the ball regularly and start to look for his own shot more, I think that only benefits him. So as opposed to the argument of who's the starting point guard, I'm just waiting to see how often they play on the floor together, because I think it's actually really beneficial.
All right, one more big kind of storyline thing to monitor in the next games coming up here, and then we'll take a break and we'll get to the Duke football win over UNC. Again, the victory bell is staying in the right shade of blue, so we're excited about that. But looking at the Duke offense, I mean, 100 points on Friday, 93 yesterday. It's really difficult to find things to complain about, Hugh, in these settings, and we're not going to do too much of this. But the free throw shooting for Duke has been unusually bad in some ways to start the season. Yesterday, Duke finished just 14 of 22 from the free throw line. And even somebody like Darren Harris, who has been a confident shooter, goes 1 for 4 from the charity stripe. I mean, it's just been really interesting to see Duke's struggles at the free throw line.
Yeah, Duke against Howard was the first game where Duke didn't win the free throw line. They've been absolutely dominant through the beginning of the season in terms of attempts and makes, just by sheer amount of attempts more than they have than the opponent. But against Howard, that wasn't the case for the first time all year. Granted, it didn't really make a difference. But Duke's still shooting around 79% as a team this season. It has to be a huge advantage because there's going to be games with how 3-point happy Duke is where they're just not falling. And with the rate that Duke likes to get inside and with the bigs it has, Duke just has to knock down free throws if it's going to beat high major teams on a consistent basis. You're not going to be able to get away with sluggish starts that Duke has had at times and not be able to make your free throws because it's going to matter late in games. But, I can't imagine that Duke was, in the second half when they're missing a couple here and there. That's not something I'm going to take very seriously.
Right.
Again, with a game like Arkansas, where Duke needs to dominate inside because Arkansas has a prolific backcourt duo of Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff, 2 5-star freshmen. Malik Thomas is averaging almost 19 points per game to start this season. But I think it's a game where Duke's going to have to control the paint. Arkansas really hasn't played anybody yet. They played Michigan State and lost. Besides that, no one really of note. So really interesting team to monitor. And I think will be a really, really good test for Duke against a fast-paced, uber-athletic Razorback squad coached by one of the best to ever do it.
Just got to make free throws. That's our bottom line there. So, all right, 2 wins for Duke. They're now 7-0 on the season, and exciting stuff as they've got Arkansas on Thanksgiving night from Chicago. Let's step aside. We'll talk Duke football after this. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. Wayfair is the absolute best. Let me tell you about our friends over at Wayfair. With the holiday season right around the corner, that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help make you shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Yeah, that's a wide variety of things. Looking around the house this holiday season, my family's been able to upgrade on so many various things, like some new dining room chairs. We've got a front porch rug that we're really excited about. So go check it all out at Wayfair. Don't miss out on these early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop the Black Friday sale up to 70% off. Wayfair.com, Wayfair.com. Sale ends December 7th. Wayfair is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, last segment here today on the program. Hugh Straine from Ball Durham's hanging out with me today. We'll brief little talk about Duke football, who wins 32-25 over the rival North Carolina Tar Heels. The Blue Devils had a 24-10 lead in this game in the second half. North Carolina scores 15 straight points to take the lead, and then a gutsy fake field goal call where Todd Polino catches the pitch, runs it all the way down to the one. Duke scores the go-ahead touchdown. Unbelievable scenes on Saturday night there in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, Cole. I mean, I physically, made a wild face after it happened.
Yeah.
Last thing I was expecting was that, in a 1-point game kind of coming down to the wire like that. But it was hilarious to read and listen to Todd Polino talk to the media afterwards. He was like, that was the first time I've ever had the ball in my hands. And, he just kept seeing green grass. And I mean, it worked to absolute perfection, faked the entire defense. And that's really the second time we've seen a really, really, really gutsy call and a crucial moment from Manny Diaz, going back to the 2-point conversion against Clemson off that wild pass interference call to end up winning the game. But wildly enough, Duke's 6-5, bowl eligible now, 5-2 in league play. And somehow, some way, despite all the disappointment, an ACC championship game appearance actually isn't out of the question. And there's a couple of paths for Dukes to get there. There's 3 one-loss teams in the league, in league play, 3 two-loss teams. So a lot has to go right, but there are a couple of paths for it to actually happen. Duke's got Wake Forest this weekend, a bottom-tier ACC squad at home. Duke should close out and finish business against Wake Forest, finish 7-5, and at least give themselves some sort of chance because they control so little of their own destiny right now.
Yeah, there's still a way for a 6-way tie, which is insane there in the conference. Georgia Tech losing this past week to Pitt really kind of opened things up, and now Georgia Tech is done with conference games. They've got their big rivalry game against Georgia. That's getting ahead of ourselves. We'll save a lot of that for later in the week, Hugh. I want to really celebrate this win for Duke, and again, the gutsy call there at the end. And then how about a shout-out to Mr. Anderson Castle, who punches in 3 touchdowns. Pretty fitting. Against NC State, 3 touchdowns. Here against North Carolina, he's able to run it in for 3. Another in-state ACC squad coming up on Saturday in Wake Forest. Watch out. If I'm the Demon Dinkins, I'm locating number 4 every time he's on the field. But that was really cool to see Castle play so well and again, add up 3 touchdowns against the rivals.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns on just 13 carries. And you mentioned similar to NC State, Anderson Castle transferred to Duke from Appalachian State. It's kind of part of that in-state sort of rivalry, part of all that. So good for the hometown kid to get into the end zone a couple times, beat the arch rival. And yeah, just a win that, Duke's going to celebrate. I thought it was great to see that the fight in the team didn't go away because although you never want to say that, it was somewhat reasonable to think that it would go away just because of the basically lost hope of anything meaningful happening this season besides becoming bowl eligible. But it was super cool to see this weekend on Sunday before the game at Howard, the football team brings the victory bell on a center court at Cameron Indoor. They looked fired up, and it was just good to see the team kind of back in good spirits, a good win over your arch rival. I remember in the preseason, Bill Belichick in his opening press conference said that he was always told his first words were beat Duke. Not sure how much I'm buying that, but nice to see him say that in the preseason with all the drama the North Carolina football program has dealt with this season, on the field, off the field. It's good to see Duke get that win, and a win Duke absolutely needed to have because Duke is a much, much better team than North Carolina.
Yeah, it was awesome. Really great win for this Duke team. I loved it. 32-25 final score. And when the defense needed to make some stops, they made some stops there at the very end. So unbelievable stuff there. Busy week of things coming up on the basketball side, and then football, like we said, has Wake Forest. There's a world in which they're going to be playing for a conference championship game. Unbelievable stuff, Hugh. Tell us about Ball Durham and all your coverage.
Yeah, I'm the site expert at balldurham.com, powered by Fansided. That's BALLDURHAM.com. Everything you guys need from basketball to football to recruiting, NIL news, whatever it might be, go check us out, powered by Fansided. New content every single day. Always appreciate being on here, JJ.
Happy Thanksgiving, Hugh. We'll see you soon, okay?
You too. Have a good one.
That's Hugh Straine joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that's going to bring our show today to a close. Thank you guys for your support. As always, big wins for Duke basketball, and happy to see the Duke football team take down North Carolina. Unbelievable stuff. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever it is that you get your podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube. As always, go Duke. Talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.